So I'm back. So I got on my Lions hat today. Shout out to the Lions. Even though y'all know I'm a Patriots fan, through and through, have been for over 20 years. But y'all know that I'm also born and raised in Detroit. So of course, most of my friends is Lions fans. I grew up, of course, watching Lions games. They my local team. So, of course, even though I'm a Patriots fan, of course, I always got love for the Lions. I know about what's going on with the Lions because, of course, at work, out in public, you know how it is when you in the local city. Even if you root for another team, if you still in that city, you can't help but to be involved with it and know what's going on and root for them. Because I always say you can be a fan of another team that's outside of your city, because people become fans for various reasons. Some people move from one city to the next. So maybe you was born in California, but then you moved to Texas, but you still a Lakers fan, even though you've been in Texas for years. Or you could be somebody who parents got you into being a fan, kind of like with me and the Lakers to a certain degree, because my dad was a huge Shaq fan. My few memories is of him wearing a Shaq jersey and watching the Lakers game, and that's how I found Kobe and became such a big Kobe fan because he was a fan of Shaq, but I was more so paying attention to Kobe. So, stuff like that. You could become a fan of a team from your parents. So it's a lot of reasons why you could become fans of a team outside of the city, but I always feel like you should still always root for your hometown team. You shouldn't be against them or rooting against them unless you're in a weird situation to where like you a division rival fan, like which I always say that's a hard and a tricky thing because if you is gonna be a fan of a team outside of your city, like you shouldn't be a rival, like you shouldn't be a Bulls fan. I mean, you shouldn't live in Chicago and be a Pistons fan or be a Piston fan and or be a Bulls fan to live in Detroit, like that's when it kind of become a rivalry and problem. Even though that do happen, because I had a friend who was a Ohio State fan. Even though he was fans of all Detroit teams, but he was an Ohio State fan because he was born in Ohio, and then his brothers kind of pushed it upon him like, no, we Michigan fans, you from Ohio, so be a Ohio fan. So he kind of got into a tough situation like that to where he grew up, his brothers forced him to root for Ohio, even though he root for all Detroit teams and he wanted to root for Michigan, but he ended up, having that connection with Ohio. So stuff like that do happen. But anyway, getting into the topic, Jared Goff. So y'all see what the video say. So what the title say, my bad. And that is, should the Lions get rid of Jared Goff, or is Jared Goff holding the Lions back? I know this has become a new topic since the game against the Eagles last week, where Jared Goff played horribly. So people kind of been breaking up. But then last year, I was saying that when they lost to the Redskins, he didn't play good. Then we know that Goff had this reputation since the Rams because he played horrible in that Super Bowl that they lost to the Patriots. Against the 49ers, he didn't play that great. He played all right. So it's like, is Jared Goff that guy that can get you over the top? And the Rams thought that he wasn't, and you see they traded and got Stafford and won the championship the very same year. So that kind of is some proof right there. And I used to always say this about Stafford. I used to always feel like Stafford wasn't the guy to get the Lions over the top. Like he was, like I always say, he's a great quarterback, had one of the best arms physically. He one of the toughest quarterbacks, but I always questioned him. But since he went to the Rams, my everything that changed about Stafford, and it goes to show that the team does matter because he won a Super Bowl. Then look what he's doing this year, killing it. Like since and then he made the playoffs last year. So Matthew Stafford, I think, made the playoffs 3 out of the 4 years he been with the Rams and won a Super Bowl. So look at how different he looked with a different organization. So sometimes it is the team that's holding you back. And I always say, like we already know, Stafford only really had one good team when they lost to Dallas in the playoffs when they was cheated with that Brandon Pettigrew pass interference, one of the worst calls ever. So outside of that, Stafford came from, well, went to an 0-16 team and everything like that. So, and he had to deal with like the bad organization of the Lions. So I really do feel like the Lions, that's one of the one times that I was wrong about a player. I was, but I was, because I always knew that Stafford was good, but I always thought that it was more so him holding the Lions back, throwing interceptions, forcing the ball to Calvin. Even though he do that now, like one thing about Stafford is that he forces the ball. And so, like if I'm a wide receiver, I love to play with Stafford. Cause look what he did with Calvin, then Cooper Cup, and now I forgot the dude name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I can't believe I forgot. But y'all know who I'm talking about that start. I think his name started with a P. It's on the tip of my tongue. So it's like, Stafford gonna get you the ball. And I do feel like if Stafford was on this Lions team, they would have a better shot and be better because Stafford never had a team all around this stack besides that one year where he had where I think that was the number two defense behind Seattle that year. And then on offense, he had Calvin and a couple other weapons I can't think of off the top of my head. But even then, defensively, I'll say the Lions probably was better because they was a second-rate defense. That defense was great that year. But offensively, Stafford didn't even have this overall weapons. Yes, he had Calvin, but he never had a great running back. He never had no Jahmyr Gibbs. And then especially with Montgomery, that 1-2 punch, he never had a running game, and he never had a good offensive line like this. That's what a lot of people say is that Lions didn't have one of the best offensive lines. Stafford never had that. So Stafford did have a better defensive team for that one year, but offensively, he didn't have what Goff has. And then St. Brown is overrated. I mean, underrated. Like he's not, of course, he's not a Calvin Johnson, but you see the numbers that he put up. Like he's, a top 10 receiver for sure. So it makes me think like Stafford probably could have went further with this team. But it is what it is. But as far as Goff, the problem is that I know a lot of people say it's because he's not mobile. So Stafford doesn't, I mean, not Stafford, Goff doesn't move in the pocket a lot. He's stationary. Then a lot of people feel like them type of quarterbacks not good in today's NFL. You need a quarterback with some legs and stuff like that. That's been a topic. And I do agree, unless you, of course, Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, like unless you the best when it comes to pocket passing, then you have to have the intangibles, the knowledge. Like you got to be one of the top people to just be able to stand in a pocket and do it. But even Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow run a little bit, but he mostly a pocket passer. So I don't think it's strictly that you have to have legs. Because look at Joe Burrow, he don't run like that. It's just that Garrett Goff is just not as accurate, just as good as a passer that it takes to overcome not having legs. Because like you can be a Lamar Jackson and be like a average or good passer, but then your legs take you over the top to compensate for that. If you strictly a pocket passer, you got to be elite. You get what I'm saying? Like you got to be at the top of the top. And Stafford is a little bit above average. Obviously, he a better thrower than Lamar Jackson and some other players who have legs. But like I said, he's not Joe Burrow. He's not Patrick Mahomes in the pocket. He's not Tom Brady in the pocket. I don't even know if he's better than Josh Allen in the pocket. So, because we know that he don't have an arm like that. Every now and then he'll make a good throw to Jamison Wilson, but we know Goff not known for his arm. Goff don't have a strong arm. You can look at him and see when he throw. He more so of a an accurate passer, the mid to short throws and getting them on time, timing routes and stuff like that. Is what Goff really good at, but it's just not enough. Then you have the question like looking at Goff. It's hard to judge. You ain't supposed to judge nobody by their looks, but like Goff looks soft. I'm sorry, like if you seen Goff walking down the street, like Goff, like his face, everything that screams like somebody who a nice guy. Like like he just screams, "Oh, I'm a nice guy." Like you don't see that edge in them. You don't see that. Like like he don't look at somebody like you don't look at Jared Goff like a tough person. Matter of fact, you wouldn't even think that Goff is a football player if you seen him on the street from his body type and everything. Like you wouldn't think that Goff is a football player besides his height. 'Cause I think Goff like 6'4". That's the only thing that kind of makes him look like a athlete is his height. So it just like it just like it, it's like Golf don't have like you could just look like you could just tell that he don't have that dog in him. Not saying that he's soft because all NFL players, got to have some toughness, but you don't see that Tom Brady in them. You don't see that, like that real um will to win and that Mamba mentality. Like you don't see that in golf at all. And it shows in the playoffs because in the playoffs also because that's when the pressure is on. 'Cause like I said last year, he played horrible against the Reds, the Commanders, whatever their name is now. He struggled against them. You look at how horribly he played in that round Super Bowl. Like it is no coincidence when the spotlight is on or when he playing against the best teams, he rarely excelled for real. And the Lions' success mainly been the running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, because we know you got a great running back and somebody explosive like Gibbs, that opens up the offense for him to play action and everything like that. Because when people go into the game, I'm pretty sure they focus on stopping the running backs. And then Goff has St. Brown who makes him look good. Because like I said, St. Brown catches damn near everything. I'm like, this dude don't drop, no balls for sure. So it's like, then he didn't have great tight ends. Also, then like I said, you got a stacked offensive line. I know I think Ragnar was injured, but still, he wasn't injured last year against the Redskins. So it's like, no, I just don't think that Goff can do it. Like I just can't see Goff coming up big in a Super Bowl. And then the playoffs, like we have seen, like he just don't got that in him. So the question is, should the Lions move on for Goff? And I think that it's starting to be a serious conversation going forward because we know Goff is I think 32 or something like that, 31, 32. And even though that's not that old because you think now quarterbacks is playing until 40, but that's not every quarterback. Like Tom Brady did messed up the game. Yeah, he's 30, he just turned 31. So he should still have a good 4 or 5 years left, but so that's why the Lions really have to make a decision because you always get caught up in that good but not good enough type of thing. Then you got to think of who you can replace them with. So it's a lot that goes into it because drafting somebody, you got to develop them. You don't know if they're gonna pan out. Then we know great quarterbacks never come available in free agency like that unless something major happened. Then they can't trade for a quarterback after just trade Stafford or like to get an upgrade, they have to trade Goff and like 3 number 1 picks, and then it's like who would you even get? Like what team would even be open to trading them? Maybe a Joe Burrow, but ain't gonna because he. I would say Joe Burrow because he always injured, but they not gonna do that because he's from Cincinnati. So they don't want to get rid of Joe Burrow. Then it's like who else? We know Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson not getting traded. They can't get Stafford back. So it's like who is really there? The up and coming. Of course, the Patriots not trading Drake May. Um, like it's not nobody really that you could say maybe like a CJ Stroud or something, but I doubt the Texas wanted to trade him. But maybe if the package is right, since he kind of been having a down year these past 2 years after having a great rookie season, but it's just like, what can you do? So the Lions is kind of stuck in a tight place to where they kind of stuck with golf, or they just gonna have to bite the bullet and try to draft the quarterback. So I don't know, but I know Lions fans is against it and like golf. But I just don't. I just can't see him getting the Lions over the top. I can't see him coming up big in the NFC Championship game Super Bowl because it's been 2 years, even against the 49ers. he didn't play that great. It's not like the Lions was, I think the first half they was no what trying to remember the 49ers. Oh no, they was up big at first, then in the second half they collapsed. Typical stuff when it comes to when you got a quarterback that don't got that clutch gene in him. Where against the Redskins he played terrible. So it's like I just don't trust Goff when it matters most. And I look at this team like if so many other quarterbacks had this Lions team, because this Lions team is really stacked right now, the Lions would have a better chance. But I'm out. I ain't gonna keep stretching this video. I just don't trust Goff, and I think that Goff is what's going to hold the Lions back. That and the coach, as we seen against the 49ers, not kicking a field goal and being overly aggressive and not being smart some of the time, being impulsive, that can also be a problem because, Dan Campbell, the type, or maybe hopefully he learned this lesson, but I don't know. But he the type in the Super Bowl, he can go for it on fourth down instead of taking a field goal. And, the same thing can happen again. So it's iffy when you're dealing with such an aggressive coach like Dan Campbell is. But that's my thoughts. I do think the Lions need somebody else besides Goff, but I do also understand who the hell is they going who else can they get? They kind of stuck with them for real. Unless they just bite the bullet and draft a quarterback, trade up for a quarterback, but then you still got to give him time to develop. Unless he's just that dude and he comes in, off rip, which we know rarely happen. No, Joe Burrow came in and led the Bengals to a Super Bowl his second season. So it can happen, but that's once in a generation. So might be stuck with Goff, but it's sad if the Lions threw off this era don't get a Super Bowl. I think he's gonna be the number one to blame because they gonna look at it like the team was good enough. Goff just wasn't the guy, and I'm out.